As we all know, we have major education reforms going on, and one of it must touch on language, because language is the medium, the way in which information is sharing, the way learning happens. And the key message that I think we need to get across is that for children to learn, for children to be able to ask questions, then they must be allowed to communicate in the language they know. And the language policy makes space for this, because the language policy states that children should be taught in the language of the catchment area or in Kiswahili, where you have multi. If you go out there in the estate, try and find out what is the common language children are playing in. If it is in the estate here in Majengo, it will probably be some form of Kiswahili. If it is, perhaps if you go to an area like in Turkana, it will probably be Ngaturkana. That has to be the language children are introduced to. So I think this conference over here is a challenge both to us in the education sector, but also to parents. Because we know that many parents consider the language of success not to be the language children are speaking. We all know that the language of success is seen to be English, because that is the language in which jobs are given. But perhaps we should separate the language of the world of work from the language children need to be nurtured to grow in. And a lot of research says that if you begin a child in the language that they understand, you will allow them to be able to learn. But this does not mean they'll not be able to learn another language. Look at a country like the Scandinavian countries. Children start from their language. In Japan, children start from their language, because that is how you can grow a child. But then they can then be introduced to other languages. And I think that is the message we need to get over to Kenya. Let children start with the language they have come with from home. That language might be English in some households, might be Kiswahili in some households, but in the rural areas will be our languages of diversity. And when you start with that, then introduce them slowly to other language. We will still be successful Kenyans.
From grade, that is what you're saying, from grade 1 to grade 3?
The language policy states that from in the early years, the language children should be taught in is in their first language, which sometimes we have been using the word mother tongue, but a better word to use is maybe the indigenous languages or the common language. The language of play is what the children should be introduced in, or Kiswahili in very multilingual environments. That is the language policy. It has been there, it's a good policy. So we start with the language children know. If we want children to be thinkers, we are saying we want children to be innovators. You cannot innovate if you are not understanding a concept. And very often, the people who are against this are the people who are, I think, confusing that success is synonymous to speaking English. It is not.
That's what you're looking to introduce, maybe when by when? Is it there already, or you're looking to introduce following the
David.
debate? Or is it there already in the schools?
It's already there. That's a policy that is being implemented. There are certain pockets, there are certain situations where the practice is a bit different because of the issues that she has raised, attitudes and capacities. But in the CBC, that is the policy that is being implemented. Yeah. Those are the challenges that we are expecting this pre-conference to address. As you heard the keynote speaker, he raised quite a number of challenges, and we are hoping by the end of today, we will come up with a common position on how best to address them.
I think the other key issue that we need to encourage is the issue of attitude. I think, as the chair has alluded to, we are also calling on parents to appreciate that the ability of their child to speak a language like English from very early years does not necessarily translate into performance or good performance in academics. Because I think this has been a big problem that many parents want their children to start speaking English very early. They might sound very eloquent, and this is interpreted to mean being able to perform well in class. I think this is something that we need to engage with and also encourage them to allow children to engage in a language that they're used to. As it has been indicated by our key speaker, when a child learns in school and what they are learning in a language that they understand is reinforced in their play, in their interaction at home, they learn much faster. And it also makes it easier for them to later move into learning a second, third, and fourth language. As she said again, I mean, look at the situation across the world. Whether you're talking about Asia or you're talking about Europe or many, almost all those countries introduce children to learning in their local languages. And I don't think they're doing any worse than those that maybe do that in English. So this is what we are encouraging, and it's a process that we hope, as we go on with the debate, can be synthesized and used properly to promote learning in Kenya, and also make children feel at home when they go to school.
Do we have enough teachers for that?
I think that is part of the debate that we have here. Do we have enough teachers? Because speaking a language may not necessarily interpret into you being able to teach it. So those are the debates we are dealing with here, so that from here we can decide as a country how then do we enhance the training of teachers in the various local languages that can promote indigenous languages. Okay. I think I'll hand over to David to proceed with that.
Knowing English is not the same as being educated or being knowledgeable in everything. It's good to have English, it's good to have French, it's good to have German, but it's also very good, and indeed very good, to speak and to identify with the indigenous languages of our people.